Good afternoon, Rahim and Melody.
Good afternoon.
Thank you so much. You're welcome to today's class. Today, we are going to look at course number EGL 0080. It's called Developmental English. In this class, we will learn how to write sentences, paragraphs, essays, and even longer papers. But for the time being, we are going to study about the English sentence. In any language in the world, many languages that are spoken in the world, words are used. And these words represent sounds. These sounds are represented by letters. Now, in the English phonetics and phonology, we call the smallest sounds of language or of our sentence, they are called phones, from where we get our word telephone. Those are the smallest units of words. Like, for example, if I ask you the word box, Rahema, can you spell the word box?
That is B-O-X.
Yes, B-O-X. How many sounds are in that word?
B-O-X. 3.
Two. There are 3 sounds. So there are 3 words. Are they 3 or 4?
3 sounds. 3 sounds. Yeah, 4. Box.
4. Yeah,
Box.
there are 4 sounds. But how many letters are there?
3 letters.
Only 3 letters. So you can see that those are that is a word that has 4 sounds but has only 3 letters. Now, that is how words are formed. That is morphology. But then we come to how sentences are formed. Sentences are formed using words. Sentences are formed using words. Now, it is important in any language, it is important to note these 5 things that I want to speak about. These 5 things are very important, just like the fingers on my left arm. You cannot hold anything with this hand when you miss any finger here. Now, this little finger here could represent listening. This little finger represents listening, and listening is intake. You listen, like right now, Rehema, your daughter, she is listening. And anytime you make a sound, she listens. She may not understand, but as she grows, she will come to understand what those sounds mean. Yeah. Now, next thing is reading. Reading, the primitive reading is looking at signs. You see a picture of an animal and you know that is an animal. So that is reading. You remember when you went to class 1 or kindergarten? You just had to look at cups, spoons, and a table, chair. So you learned words by seeing. That's reading. And then writing now you practice to get to know how those words are written and how they are represented using letters that are representing sounds. And then the next thing that you learn is speaking. Now, how to pronounce those sounds. And then these 4 are not enough. Still, you cannot use these 4. When you don't have a thumb, you cannot hold anything using these 4 fingers. Then the 5th finger represents thinking. Now, when you fold your hand like that, you can see this one strengthens these 4, to make it strong. So the 5th, the thumb, represents thinking. Every time in any language, there must be where you employ critical thinking critical writing, critical reading. Now, in the palm, you have, the palm goes everywhere. It goes to listening, reading, writing, speaking, thinking. Then we have it as grammar. Now, grammar is the rules that govern the use of a language. You remember those 5 things: listening, reading, writing, speaking, thinking, and grammar. Now, we move ahead and look at the most essential things in a sentence and the most essential things in a paragraph. If we'll have time, we'll have to go up to studying what a paragraph is. But for the time being, let's look at the sentence, the English sentence. So these are the essentials in sentence analysis and sentence writing. The first thing you need to think about and to take into account is the audience. The audience is that particular person who is listening to you, who is watching you, who is reading what you're writing. That is the audience. This is important because once you are communicating, when you say a word, the particular person you are addressing will hear what you say. For you to know that the person has heard and understood what you said is when the person acts the way you want. Melody, if you tell your son, come, your son will look at you and you know that they have heard. If they come towards you, you know that they have understood what you've said. So the audience is important. Next is the purpose. Why are you writing that sentence? Why are you writing that paragraph? The next thing is the organization. So once you write a sentence, you have a purpose in mind, and then you have how to organize that sentence. You have to put words in an orderly manner. You don't just put words anyhowly. You have to arrange those words according to the grammatical requirements of any language. So organization is important. And then the fourth thing is the style. The style is the packaging, your unique way of presenting something. Style. So you may use proverbs, you may use idiomatic expressions, you may use flowery language to make what you're talking about or what you're writing understood, attractive, and enjoyable and interesting. Then the next thing that follows is the flow. Thoughts are arranged in order. You start with the most important, and then you go with the supporting ideas to make that which you are communicating understood. So it must be chronological or in the order of importance or significance. So the flow of thought is important here. The last thing, the sixth one, is the presentation. This is an essential in sentence writing. How do you present now your sentences or your sentence or your paragraph? So after you've made, think of it as a sandwich. Sandwich, you include things in it, and then you pack it, you put slices of bread, and then you serve it. That is the essentials in sentence and paragraph writing. Next, we look at syntax. Syntax is the study of the structure and ordering of these elements or the words. That is syntax. The word syntax is from Greek or the Greek language, which means together, arrangement. Now, when we put words together, we make a sentence. When you put sounds together, what do we make, Rehema? When you put sounds together, what do we form? Hello?
Hello.
Rehema?
Yes.
When we put sounds together, what do we make?
We make a sentence.
No, sounds.
Or sounds together.
Yes.
What?
When we put sounds together, we make words. When we put words together, we make
A sentence.
a sentence.
Sentence.
When you put words together, we make a sentence. Now, how do we define a sentence? How do we define a sentence? Melody, what is a sentence?
A sentence is a group of words that make
meaning.
Okay. It's a group of words that makes complete meaning or sense. Now, when you define, you see, the definition you've given us, Melody, has two things. You've talked about group and you've talked about meaning.
Word.
Meaning, a group of words, and you've talked about meaning. Now, when we look at a group of words and the way you arrange them, we get the notional definition of a sentence. Notional, which means it looks at a sentence as an expression of a single idea. And then the second definition, the second characteristic of defining the sentence takes into consideration the formal part, which focuses on the manners of constructing sentences and patterns within those sentences. We look at this when we proceed. Now, Rema, can you read for me that definition of a sentence?
A sentence can be defined simply as a group of words that make complete meaning.
A group of words that makes complete meaning or makes complete sense. Very good, thank you. Now, if a sentence is a group of words, then how do we know that this is a sentence? How do we understand the meaning of a sentence? This one brings us to looking at the English sentence with the different kinds. So we have 4 different kinds of sentences. Rema, can you read the first 2 and Melody read the second 2?
So there are 4 kinds of sentences. A sentence that makes a statement or an assertion is called a declarative.
An assertion.
Sorry. A sentence that makes a statement or an assertion is called a declarative or assertive sentence. A sentence that expresses a command or an entity is called an imperative sentence.
Okay. The word is entreaty, Rema, entreaty. Can you pronounce it?
Entreaty, what does that mean?
Entreaty, it means a command. Is the same meaning, is the same name that means, it's a word that means the same as command. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
It means I'm entreating you. I'm asking you to do something. I'm commanding you. Okay. Now, number 3, Melody.
A sentence that asks a question is called an interrogative sentence. A sentence that expresses a feeling is called an exclamatory sentence.
That's very good. Now, Rehema, what you read, a declarative sentence or an assertive sentence is a sentence that just states. Now, make any sentence, Rehema, any sentence of your choice, using the word.
I'm a woman.
Oh, I am a woman. That is a sentence. You are stating what you are. You are declaring. Another one.
I will go to church.
I will go to church. That one, you are stating what you will do. Now, number 2, we are saying an imperative. It's a command, an entreaty. Melody, can you give us an example of a command?
Close the door.
Close the door. Another one?
Bring me water.
Bring me water. Welcome. Sit down. Those are commands. And the third type of sentences, or kinds of sentences, are those that are interrogative. They interrogate. When you hear the word interrogation, what does it bring into your mind, Rahema? What comes into your mind?
I would say it's more of wanting to find out more information.
Want to find out more information? You are asking
Yes.
about more information. So can you make a sentence that is interrogating?
Why are you crying?
Why are you crying? Good. That's a question. How do we write it? What is very important? What is the important thing when we are writing that?
A question mark at the end of the sentence.
Question mark at the end. That's very good. Now, that is an interrogative sentence. So remember, interrogative sentences are questions. What about number 4?
Quick one.
Huh?
Now, will I be right if I say the 4 W's are used to make interrogative sentences? That is the why, where, what,
when.
Yeah, you are right. When you say that the 4 W questions, or the 4 W words, why, what, when, which, where, yeah, those are used in interrogative sentences. And who? Now, a sentence that asks questions is an interrogative sentence. A sentence that expresses feelings is called
exclamatory sentence.
An exclamatory sentence. Who can give us an example of an exclamatory sentence?
What a miracle.
Oh my God.
Oh my God. Nancy is saying, ouch. Okay.
What a miracle.
Okay. Yeah, those are exclamatory sentences. So we have the 4 types: declarative, imperative, interrogative, and exclamatory. That's very good. Next, we want to look at, we said grammar is the palm. That's the rules that govern the use of language. I would like Melody to read on the slides. Please read number 1, 2, and 3.
Generative grammar looks at the grammar of language, constructing a limited number of rules describing all the possible patterns of forming correct sentences. Shows the difference between the deep and surface structure of a sentence. The surface structure of a sentence is its grammatical form, while the deep structure is the meaning of the sentence.
Yeah, that's very good. Melody, you read very well because you observe even the commas and all that, and the intonation is correct. Now, when you look at grammar, grammar is the rules that govern the language. You cannot just put words and you don't follow the given order. So if you put words together, you make a sentence. And it's not just putting words together. These words must follow a particular pattern. And this is what we call generative grammar. And then we have the surface structure of a sentence and the deep structure of the sentence. The deep structure of the sentence gives you the meaning. The surface structure gives you how the word, the sentence is just written, form. Now, there are 2 sentences in the next example. Rehema, can you read those 2 sentences that are written in red, the example?
The first example is, I know Mary and Mary knows me. Differ in their surface structure, but not in their deep structure.
Okay. The surface structure, you can see there are 3 words in the first sentence, and the second sentence, there are also 3 words. But the way the words have been used, Mary has begun, the word Mary has begun the second sentence, and then the word know has added a letter S at the end. And then the I has changed into me.
Me.
Okay?
Yeah.
We cannot say in English, Mary knows I. That would be, yeah, that would be incorrect grammar. Unless it is poetry, or when you're using it in literal terms, when you're writing a book in literature and you are using that specifically to denote some other meaning that may not be the standard meaning. So I know Mary and Mary knows me is the same thing. It's knowledge. Two people know each other. But look at the second. Certain sentences may not be easily understood because they are ambiguous. When you read the sentence, you get two meanings or more than one meaning. There's a sentence that I've written there. Melody, can you read it?
He hit a guy with a car.
Read the explanation.
This sentence, okay, let me start. He hit a guy with a car. This sentence can mean that he was driving a car and hit someone, or that he hit somebody who had a car.
See that? He hit a guy with a car. That means a car was used as an instrument of hitting.
Yeah.
But in the other meaning, it shows that the person who was hit was that one who had
a car.
Now, what brings that ambiguity is what we are calling now the deep structure of a sentence. So it's very important, not just knowing this is an imperative sentence, this is an interrogative sentence, or knowing that this is a simple sentence. It is important for you to know the structure, the surface structure, and the deep structure of the language. Now, remember we talked about a sentence and we said it's a group of words that makes complete sense. That group of words is divided into two major parts. So every sentence has two major parts. And these parts are the subject, and the predicate. The subject of the sentence usually comes first, although occasionally it is put after the predicate, like in poetry. Rayama, can you read the two sentences there?
Every sentence has two parts. The part
the
which
sentence, the example we are giving.
or the examples of giving. Down went the big tree. Sweet are the days of childhood.
Down went the big tree. Sweet are the days of childhood. These are complete sentences, but you see the predicate begins the sentence and the subject ends the sentence. The first, what do you think is the subject of the first sentence, Melody?
The subject is the tree.
Big tree.
Big tree, yes, big tree.
Yes. And what is the subject in the second sentence, Rayama?
Childhood.
The days of childhood. Okay? The days of childhood.
A subject can be more than a word.
A subject can be more than a word, yes.
Okay, that is clear now.
Yeah, because when it's a noun may have a noun may have an adjective added on it to describe what it is. A beautiful girl. So you can say the beautiful girl went to school. So the predicate there is went to school. Went starts with the verb. But the beautiful girl is the subject. Now, if you look at those two sentences we've talked about there, the predicate begins. But we have some sentences that you cannot see the subject. And these sentences are imperative sentences, commands. they may not have the subject. For example, if I say, sit down, what is the verb?
Sit.
Sit. There is no subject in that sentence.
Right.
If I say, thank you, there's no subject in that sentence. So, in other words, I, which is supposed to be, I thank you. And in the first sentence, you sit down. I don't need to put the word you there. I just say, sit down. And it's a command. You know that it is you I am commanding to sit down. So when you look at such kind of sentences, know that the subjects are understood. Next, the sentence can be further classified according to structure. For example, we may have simple sentences, compound sentences, and complex sentences. Simple sentences are sentences consisting of only one clause with a single subject and predicate. For example, Melody, can you read the first sentence?
The Mississippi River flows southeast into the Gulf of Mexico.
The Mississippi River flows southeast into the Gulf of Mexico. How many verbs do you have in that sentence?
We have one verb.
Only one verb. Where is it? Which is the verb?
Flows.
Flows. Now, in the second sentence, Rehema, can you read and then you point out where the verb is?
Monarch butterflies fly south to Mexico for the winter. Fly is the verb in that sentence.
Fly is a verb in that sentence. Now, what is the subject?
Monarch butterflies will be the subject.
Monarch butterflies. Melody, what is the subject in the first sentence?
Mississippi River.
The Mississippi River. And what is the predicate?
Flows southeast into the Gulf of Mexico.
Southeast into the Gulf. Flows. It starts with the verb. Remember, a predicate begins with the verb. Okay?
Yeah.
Because when we say the Mississippi River flows, it's a complete sentence. So the predicate there is flows. Do we have any question up to there?
I don't.
Is there anything that you don't understand from what we have learned up to that point?
It's clear.
It's clear.
It's
Thank
clear.
you. Now, next, we've looked at simple sentences. Now we are coming to compound sentences. Compound sentences are made up of two or more main clauses linked by a conjunction, such as and, but, or, so, as in the following examples. Rehema, read the first sentence.
I love sport and I am captain of the local football team.
I love sport and I'm captain of the local football team. Now, if you look at that sentence, can you see me?
Yes. Yes.
Now, if you look at that sentence, it is, oh, my thing is messing up. Sorry, you'll forgive me.
We're still on the same slide.
Yeah. Okay, so you can see that this sentence, I love sport, is a complete sentence. It is called a clause. I am captain of the local football team. It's a clause. So they are called main clauses, but they are joined together by the word and that word and is a conjunction. I love sport is a complete sentence. In the second sentence, the same is applicable. Melody, could you read that second sentence and tell us or identify the main clauses and identify the conjunction?
She was born in Spain, but her mother is Polish. The two main clauses are, the first one is she was born in Spain, and the second main clause is
Her
her mother is Polish. And the conjunction is but.
Good, the conjunction is but. The two main clauses are complete sentences by themselves. They are independent clauses. They are main clauses. That means they can stand and make meaning by themselves without the other. Now, complex sentences, on the other hand, are sentences that contain a subordinate clause or subordinate clauses. These are sentences that have an independent clause and at least one dependent clause. Complex sentences often are used to make clear which ideas are most important and which ideas are subordinate. For example, Melody, can you read the first sentence?
If you can speak more than 2 languages, you will see that you will find a job easily.
If you can speak more than 2 languages, you will see that you find a job easily. This sentence here, the first clause is if you speak more than 2 languages. There's a comma there. That is a clause. Then we say, you will see that you find a job easily. These two, one depends on the other to make complete meaning. The same applies to the second sentence. Rehema, can you read that one?
You should study by taking notes. It becomes more memorable.
Now, you should study by taking notes. Is that a complete sentence?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. But if I say it becomes more memorable, is it a complete sentence?
Yes, it
No.
is.
Is it?
No, it's not.
Oh, no, it's not.
Yeah, why don't you think it's not, Melody?
Because it's dependent. It does not make complete sense until you include the first clause, which is you should study by taking notes.
Yes.
So
So
that
when we
will-
leave, yeah, that's correct. That's correct, Melody. When we say it becomes more memorable, just like that, you'd ask me what becomes more memorable? What is it? So it means it's just hanging. It doesn't make complete meaning. So that's why we are saying that it becomes more memorable is a dependent clause. And the first one, you should study by taking notes, is an independent clause. Now, there are 2 types of clauses, 2 types of subordinate clauses. These are conditional clauses and relative clauses. Conditional clauses give us the condition, and they always have if or unless. Okay? If you study hard, you'll pass your examination. The word if makes it conditional. Unless you study hard, you won't pass your examination. So unless there is joining the 2 sentences together. And you can put this word unless or if in the middle of the sentence. Now, read the first sentence, Rehema.
If it looks like rain, a simple shelter can be made from a plastic sheet.
If
Sorry,
it
let
looks
me-
like,
Yeah. If it looks like rain, a simple shelter can be made from a plastic sheet.
what does
So
it mean?
If
If
it looks like rain,
that is a conditional
a
clause.
conditional clause.
Okay? And the main clause is a simple shelter can be
can be
made from a plastic sheet. It's a
sheet.
complete sentence that can stand by its own, on its own. Melody, can you read the second one?
I'll be home tomorrow unless the plane is delayed for hours.
What's the main clause?
I'll be
I'll
home
be home tomorrow.
Now, the conditional clause here is unless the plane
Yeah. Sorry.
is delayed for hours, is the conditional clause.
Yes.
The main clause is I'll be home tomorrow, because it can stand by its own. It can stand on its own. But if I say unless the plane is delayed for hours, you'll ask me, so what? Because you don't understand the whole meaning of the word. Now, the subordinate clause, from the word subordinate, it means it supports the main clause. It supports the main clause. And before I forget, the other clause that we talked about, the conditional clause, you will see that it makes conditions. And this other one, subordinate clause, which is dependent on the independent and the main clause, they have words that are used to connect them. And these words would be adverbs, relative adverbs that can join these words. Now, a subordinate clause depends on the main clause to make meaning. And they make part of a complex sentence. So read the first sentence, Melody, and Rehema, you read the second sentence so that we hurry up. We don't have time.
After we had lunch, we went back to work.
Okay. Which do you think is the main clause there?
We went back to work.
We went back to work. It's complete. But the first one, when you say after we had lunch, then you leave it at that, is not a sentence. Rehema, read the second one. Rehema.
Yes.
Read the second one.
I first saw her in Paris, where I lived in the early 90s.
Oh, okay.
The main clause is
yes.
The main clause is I first saw her in Paris.
Okay. I first saw her in Paris. It's a complete sentence. Melody, how do we pronounce that word Paris?
Paris.
Paris.
Paris. Oh, okay. That's fine. Now, relative clauses. A relative clause is one connected to a main clause by a word such as which, that, whom, whose, when, where, or
who.
Now, Rehema, can you see your 5 W's?
Right.
Now, when you say I first saw her in Paris, where I lived in the early 90s, that is a relative clause where I lived in the early 90s. So the main clause is I first saw her in Paris or Paris. Now, the second sentence, Melody, please read. We have 1 minute to close.
She wants to be with Thomas, who is best suited to take care of her.
Good. Now, you will look at this as you do more